Hi, everyone, and welcome to our pilot episode of our new YouTube channel. It's called What's the Weather? Because when everyone goes on vacation, they want to know...
What's the weather going to be like?
My name is Brett. This is my wife, Sherry.
Hello.
We've been married for more than 30 years. We've raised 2 kids. We've been to Disney several times.
A lot.
Been on a few cruises. And so what we're going to do is take our 2 favorite things. Mine is the weather.
Mine is planning for and taking vacations.
I've done weather for 30 years. I've been a meteorologist for more than 30 years on several television stations across the country. So extensive experience in this field. And you have extensive experience as a history professor. So if you ever want to go on a battlefield trip, ask Sherry, or historical places, not necessarily battlefields.
Our kids love the fact that every time we go on vacation, we make them do something like history-based.
We sneak that in there.
Sneak it in.
Love to sneak that in there. All right, so here's the deal. As I said, I've been a meteorologist for 30 years, and I use something called the Long-Range Cycling Weather Pattern Theory, or the LRC. Many of you may have heard of that. I've worked in Kansas City, worked with the meteorologist Gary Lezak, who came up with this long-range cycling weather pattern theory. And so we're going to use that to do long-range forecasting, help you plan, say if you're going to the Eastern Caribbean, the Western Caribbean, Orlando, Epic Universe opening up this summer.
Yay!
Yeah, and so Sherry's going to be offering up tips on some of these trips. For instance, this forecast is about the Disney Marathon coming up in January, so you've got tips on if you're taking little ones or you just want to go watch your runner run,
yes,
the best way to do that.
Yes. So if you're staying on site, just want to let everyone know, please check the bus schedules because the buses run differently on the morning of the half marathon and the full marathon. So if you plan on going out to Magic Kingdom, double check because it may not drop you off at the Magic Kingdom. It may drop you off at the Ticket and Transportation Center. And there you're going to have to hop on the monorail and go around. You want to go see your runner. There's a great spot outside the Grand Floridian. So you can pop on the monorail, get off at the hotel, and then make your way to the running site. And then take signs, because that's fun.
Oh, it is fun. It's a lot of fun. All right, so the marathon, less than a month away. So let's get to that forecast and help you plan for the upcoming Walt Disney World Marathon in January in Orlando. So the question of the day, what's the weather like for the Disney Marathon coming up in January? And of course, it's less than a month out. And we know a lot of you are wondering, what is it going to be like on that first morning when you get out there on Thursday for the 5K? And you have to get out there pretty early. A lot of families out there in the parking lot waiting to get going. And of course, on Friday for the 10K, the half K on Saturday. And then, of course, you've got the full marathon on Sunday. So we get a lot of questions about what is the weather going to be like. And we can tell you. And you might ask, how can you do that? Weathermen or meteorologists, weather ladies can't get this right 3 days out. And that's a misconception. We really do pretty well 3 days out, 4 days, even up to 7 days out now. If you look at overall what we can predict, a lot of times cold air, windy days, warm air, hot days, pretty easy. It's when we come down to those little minute or finite details of the forecast in terms of how much rain, how much snow, what's the timing like, what's the severity of the weather. Sometimes those can change, the fluctuations can change day of or day before, but really the overall trends have gotten pretty good up to about 7 to 10 days. But we can go out as much as, let's say, a month and a half, maybe even 2, 3, 4, maybe even up to a year. And you're like, how can you possibly do that? Well, if you use the Lezak recurring cycle theory, you can do that. What the heck is the LRC? Well, Gary Lezak, a meteorologist that I worked with for several years in Kansas City, discovered that every October, a new and unique weather pattern begins to set up. And once that weather pattern sets up, then it begins to cycle. And it cycles on a different length every year. every LRC is different from one year to the next. So you look at those big key signature features that are coming through in the atmosphere in October into November, and then you kind of look in on those as we get into December, and oftentimes you'll start to see reflections in December that you saw back in October. And so when you see signature storms, you can start to put the LRC puzzle together, and you can start to figure out, oh, this big upper low that came through in the middle part of October suddenly shows up somewhere in November, end of November, early December, and now it's coming back. And so it tells you the length of the cycle. So we're starting to key in on the length of the cycle now. And so because of that, we know that there is a big feature, a big upper level low that will repeat sometime in early January. It will allow some very cold air to come down from Canada. And so if you are running the Disney Marathon, including the 5K, the 10K, the half or the full, you may have some very cold mornings as you are waiting to get into those corrals, especially for the 5K and the 10K. It does look like the weather warms up a little bit once we get to the half marathon and the full marathon. All right, so here's the overall breakdown of that week. And you can see that it is fairly cold on Thursday and Friday. Packet pickup's not a problem. Of course, you're inside in the milk house and, you know, it's nice and warm and you're buying all the great collectibles and souvenirs. But anyway, that 5K, a lot of families love that 5K. It's going to be pretty cold, 5K, 10K. We get to the half marathon by Saturday. It starts to warm up a little bit. But again, you got to be out there pretty early. If you are new to the Disney Marathon, buses start picking you up from the resorts at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I remember getting out there at 3:30, started lining up and going into the corrals about 4 to 4:15. Races start by 5 a.m. I mean, they want to get people in and out of the parks. So pretty cold out there for the overall trend. Now let's go through the breakdown of the days. 5K, again, morning temperatures, fairly cold in the 30s, and it's a short 5K. Most everybody can complete that in about an hour and 15, so I would bundle up for the 5K. 10K, same situation, very cold Friday morning. You're likely going to have to bundle up again. 10K might take an hour and a half if you're walking a lot of it. If you're running it, the fast, speedy, swift runners, they'll get done in no time and probably be in and out before the sun rises or shortly after the sun rises. And so sometimes, I often laugh about this when it comes to half and full marathons, which I'll talk about here in just a second. Sometimes I laugh by the time, because I'm such a slow runner, by the time I get done, some of the speedy ladies and gentlemen, they are back in their hotel rooms, they've showered, and they're on their way to the parks or on their way to breakfast. Anyway, having said that, it is going to be cold for the 10K also. Now, we get to the half marathon, similar situation. If you've run it, you know how early you get out there. You know you sit around in the parking lot waiting. It can be chilly. The question is sometimes, what do you take? You can check a bag. You can check your stuff. Sometimes you just have to kind of tough it out. Long sleeve, running shirt, which it really works out pretty well for the fact that it's fairly cool for most of that race, even the half marathon. Full marathon can get a little bit different. But anyway, let's take a look at the half marathon forecast day. Temperatures generally cool, but they do warm up. There's a little bit of Florida humidity around. The race can take up to 3 hours for someone who's running and walking that race. Speedy runners are done like in fewer than 2 hours, maybe even an hour and a half. But when we get to the full marathon, different story. You can be out there. You have to be careful on the full marathon because you can be swept off the course if you don't hit certain checkpoints. In fact, the last time I ran the Disney Marathon, I got to a medical tent to have some second skin put on my foot for blistering. And I just made it there in time that they let me continue on to Hollywood Studios, and then I eventually finished, but I was very close on that day. Anyway, having said that, here's the forecast for the marathon, and it is, again, relatively cool in the morning, but this time we're warming up. And if you're getting to the tail end of that marathon, you're looking at temperatures that potentially could be in the lower 70s by the time you finish. So it warms up. Remember to hydrate early in those aid stations. Don't wait until you're at the half marathon point, the 13-mile point, to start trying to hydrate and catching up, because if you start to get thirsty, it might be too late. Remember to keep that hydration going throughout the morning. All right. So anyway, that's the forecast. That's what it looks like for the Disney Marathon coming up in the middle part of January. Now, I would love you to like, subscribe, share this video with anyone you know that might be running the marathon. And so there you go. That's the forecast for the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend in January. Yeah, it does look like it's going to be cold. But Sherry, if folks had questions about, say, spring break, they're going on vacation, what do you say?
I say if you need to know what's the weather, drop us a comment. Let us know where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, and we will try to make a video that addresses that.
And if we don't make the video, we'll just simply comment in the section after your comment. You can check back and get a little summarized forecast for that. But really, the longer range forecasts,
right,
you will want to check back for future videos.
Especially if you're going, if you're leaving out of Galveston, you want to know what it's going to be the day that you get there. But you also want to know what it's going to be in Cozumel and in Progreso and in Costa Maya if you're stopping there, so we can help with that.
Yeah,
Yep.
and if you're coming back into Galveston, what the weather is going to be like. One time we were on a cruise, we left, it was nice.
It's beautiful.
We got back, we ran into freezing drizzle on the way driving back home.
Snow flurries in Texas.
Yeah, in Texas, believe it or not, it happens in January. But we're going to cover the entire year here on What's the Weather. So have a great trip and keep checking back. Thanks for watching.